Hi, my name is Aura, and I'm from Texas. I live with my granny, and she's pretty much the only person I'm close with on this planet. After my mom and dad passed away, she took me in and raised me. But growing up, I didn't have many friends. I was always focused on my studies, and that's how I was able to bag a scholarship to one of the finest schools in the city. But things took a wild turn in the 10th grade. It all started when I decided to ride my bicycle to school one day. Just as I was about to park, I tripped over something, and my bicycle went crashing into a nearby car. Shoot! The car looked really expensive, and now it had a dent the size of an elephant. I was the queen of broke people. I'd never be able to pay for the damage. I had to get out of there. But just then, two evil-looking shadows appeared behind me, and one of them grabbed me. Look at that, she ruined your car, now she's running from the crime scene. Holy Jesus! Not the terrible two? Jacob and Adam were the richest and hottest kids in school, but everyone was scared of them because they were really big bullies. And now I'd rammed their car. This was officially the worst day ever. I wasn't running, and I didn't ruin it on purpose. I just accidentally. Oh, Kitty, accidentally or not, you're going to have to pay for this, Jacob said. Well, listen, man, I can't pay for it. You want my bicycle, you can have that, I replied, trying to keep my cool. You're making jokes now, you better arrange the money or else. Oh God, what was I going to do about these bullies? Just then, I remembered something. I'd seen them bullying a kid really badly after school recently. Out of desperation, I blurted, I know your secret, and I'm going to tell it to the principal. What secret? I know what you guys did last Monday. For a second they looked stunned. Then Jacob screamed, What, how do you know that? Judging from their freaked out faces, I could tell it was something big, and they thought I knew. This was perfect. Well, I'm not going to tell you here, I'll tell you in front of the principal. Let's go now. No, no, wait, we can talk this out, Adam said. Yeah, you don't need to pay for anything. Here, let me check. If your bike's broken, I'll buy you a new one, as many as you want. We'll do anything you say, just please don't tell anyone. What in the father freaking world? The two most powerful senior guys in school were totally at my mercy, and I didn't even know why. But I pretended to stay cool because I didn't want them to know I was bluffing. Sure then, how about you start by carrying my bag? It's so heavy, my hand hurts. As I walked around school that day with these two acting like my personal bodyguards, kids were staring at me like I was a magician who had the terrible two wrapped around my finger. The next day, as I stepped out of my house, Jacob was already waiting for me in his brand new car. Hey, I'm here to pick you up, so tell me, do you want to go to the beach today or the movies? What? No, I want to go to school and attend my classes. I have to submit my assignments next week. Oh, come on, Aura, you should enjoy yourself and not study so hard. Adam can do your assignments. He does mine all the time, it's no big deal. That sounded tempting, but I wasn't sure I trusted them enough to hang out with them outside of school. What if they planned to kidnap me because of their stupid secret? So I insisted on going to school. When we got there, they kept following me around. At first it felt like I was some kind of princess, but as the day went by, I realized this was a big problem. The day continued in chaos as Adam and Jacob shadowed me like overly clingy bodyguards. Their persistence was beginning to turn heads. Even teachers were raising eyebrows at the sight of the two most notorious boys in school carrying my books and trailing behind me like puppies. I could barely take a sip of water during lunch before one of them offered to get me another drink, a dessert, or anything else I might have desired. It was exhausting. Then came the real nightmare, ballet practice. As soon as I stepped into the girls' changing room, ready to prepare for practice, the screams of my fellow classmates nearly burst my eardrums. I turned to see Adam and Jacob standing there like they had every right to invade the sacred space of a girls' changing room. Have you both lost it? I shrieked. "This is the girls' room. All the more reason for us to be here, right, Adam?" Jacob smirked. Before I could completely lose my temper, I shoved them out of the room and locked the door. But their antics didn't stop there. When I walked into the ballet room, there they were dressed in tight ballerina costumes, twirling awkwardly and grinning like idiots. "What the freaking crabs are you doing?" I yelled, my face flaming with embarrassment. "You don't have to follow me everywhere." "Yes, we do," Jacob said, spinning clumsily and nearly toppling over. "What if you run off to the principal behind our backs?" "I won't." "Well, guess what? We don't trust you." Their antics escalated to the point of absurdity. During my solo performance they sat at the front hooting and cheering like crazed fans, drawing every eye in the room to their obnoxious display. By the time practice ended, I felt like my life had turned into a bizarre circus act. The next day I decided to outsmart them. I left the house before dawn to avoid Jacob's obnoxious new car pulling up in front of my house. At school I tried to keep my distance, staying on the move like a secret agent dodging surveillance. But during lunch my luck ran out. I was enjoying a rare moment of peace when Mark, the football jock I had been crushing on for months, sat down beside me. "You're the girl who tamed the terrible two," he said, flashing a dazzling smile. "I'm impressed. I like strong, dominating girls like you. How about we go out sometime?" Before I could respond, Adam materialized out of nowhere, grabbed Mark by the collar, and hoisted him off the bench like a rag doll. "How about I give you a taste of strong and dominating guys?" Adam growled. "Adam, stop!" I shouted. Mark scrambled away, and I turned on Adam furious. "What is wrong with you?" He was going to ask me out. "He asks everyone out," Adam said nonchalantly. "He's a jerk." "Oh, have you looked in the mirror lately?" I stormed off fuming. Later I caught Mark kissing another girl behind the library shelves. Adam was right, Mark was a jerk. Feeling betrayed by my own bad judgment, I picked up a book and lobbed it at his head. He yelped in pain, and I walked off feeling vindicated. Later that evening, the terrible two insisted on taking me to see the new Spider-Man movie. Despite my annoyance with them, I couldn't resist. I'd been dying to see it. After the movie, we stepped out into the chilly night air. Adam, surprising me, draped his jacket over my shoulders. "Thanks," I muttered, though I was skeptical of his sudden chivalry. As Adam went to retrieve the card, Jacob took a step closer. "So," he began, his voice low and suggestive, "I can tell you're into me. That's why you're playing this little blackmail game, isn't it?" "What, in your dreams?" "That attitude of yours," Jacob said, smirking. "It's driving me crazy, babe. How about you give me a kiss?" Before I could react, Adam appeared out of nowhere and punched Jacob so hard he fell to the ground. "How dare you touch her?" Adam snarled. "What the heck, dude?" Jacob shouted, clutching his jaw. "Did you forget who you are? You're nothing but a low-life rat living off my scraps." "I know exactly who I am," Adam said, his voice trembling with anger. "But don't you dare touch her again or I'll shove those scraps down your throat." Stunned by Adam's sudden outburst, I let him lead me to the car in silence. When we reached my house, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Adam," I began hesitantly, "why did Jacob say all those things about you? I mean, you're rich too, right?" "No, I'm not," he admitted. "It looks that way because I'm always with Jacob. But the truth is my dad used to work for his family. After my dad passed away, Jacob's family took us in. I've been paying for it ever since, doing whatever Jacob asks so I can take care of my sick mom." My heart sank. I felt an overwhelming surge of sympathy for Adam. "Thank you," I said softly, "for standing up for me today." "You're welcome," he replied, "but I wish you'd never gotten involved in this mess." "What mess?" I asked. Adam's face turned pale. "Wait, you don't actually know, do you? You don't know the secret?" Panic flickered across his face, and I realized my bluff had been exposed. The days that followed were a whirlwind of tension. Adam began avoiding me, clearly terrified of what Jacob might do next. I, however, was determined to end this nightmare once and for all. The tension between me, Adam, and Jacob only escalated in the following days. Adam had stopped trailing me entirely, which at first felt like a relief until I realized it wasn't by choice. Jacob, it seemed, had issued some kind of ultimatum, and Adam had withdrawn to avoid making things worse. Meanwhile, Jacob's behavior grew more brazen. He began publicly inserting himself into my life as if we were some sort of couple. He would sit next to me in classes. He wasn't even assigned to walk me to the cafeteria despite my protests, and even stand outside the girls' bathroom. The final straw came during an assembly when he interrupted the principal's speech to ask me to be his queen in front of the entire school. He stood there with a fake crown and a smirk, looking as pleased as ever. The auditorium erupted into cheers and laughter, but I was mortified. "No, Jacob," I said firmly, standing up and turning to leave. The room fell silent as he grabbed my wrist, his grip tightening. "Don't walk away from me," he hissed, his smile faltering. "Let go of me, Jacob," I said, my voice loud enough for the entire room to hear. Adam, who had been sitting quietly in the back, suddenly appeared by my side. Without a word, he pried Jacob's hand off my wrist and stood between us, his eyes blazing. "She said no," Adam growled. "Take the hint." Jacob glared at him, his face turning red. "You don't get to tell me what to do." "I do when you're acting like this," Adam shot back. "You've taken things too far, Jacob. Leave her alone." Jacob looked like he wanted to punch Adam, but with the entire school watching, he simply scoffed and stormed out of the auditorium. I turned to Adam, my heart pounding. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. I should have stopped him sooner." That evening Adam showed up at my house unexpectedly. He looked nervous, his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. "We need to talk," he said. I let him in and we sat in the living room. He didn't say anything for a long time, just stared at his hands as if gathering his thoughts. Finally, he looked up at me, his expression serious. "I've been protecting Jacob for years," he admitted. "I thought I owed him for helping my family, but I can't do it anymore, not when he's hurting you." I swallowed hard. "Protecting him from what?" Adam hesitated. "From himself. Jacob's family is, let's just say, they're not good people. They've covered up things for him before, when he was younger. He got into a lot of trouble, fights, stealing, even worse things. His dad always paid people off to keep it quiet, but the more he got away with, the more reckless he became. I thought if I stuck by him, I could keep him in line." The weight of his words sank in, and I realized the situation was far more dangerous than I'd thought. "What do we do now?" I asked. Adam looked at me with a determined expression. "We stop him together." The next day, Adam and I started planning. We knew we needed to gather evidence of Jacob's behavior, something undeniable that his family couldn't cover up. It wasn't just about protecting me anymore. It was about stopping him from hurting anyone else. As we worked together, I began to see a different side of Adam. He wasn't the cocky, arrogant boy I'd thought he was. He was kind, protective, and deeply loyal to those he cared about. But Jacob wasn't going to go down without a fight. By the end of the week, he confronted us in the school parking lot. His face was twisted with rage, and he looked more unhinged than ever. "You think you can betray me?" he shouted at Adam. "After everything I've done for you." "You haven't done anything for me," Adam said, his voice steady. "You've only ever done things for yourself." Jacob lunged at Adam, but this time I wasn't going to stand by and let him win. I stepped between them, my voice ringing out loud and clear. "Jacob, it's over," I said. "You don't own me, you don't control Adam, and you're not going to hurt anyone else." For a moment he just stared at me, his chest heaving. Then he laughed a cold, bitter sound. "You think you're so brave," he sneered, "but you don't know what you're dealing with." With that he stormed off, leaving us both shaken but resolute. Adam and I knew the fight wasn't over. But for the first time I felt like we had a chance. Together we were stronger than Jacob's threats. Together we could finally bring the truth to light. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Adam and I worked tirelessly to gather evidence against Jacob. It wasn't easy. Jacob was clever and had years of practice hiding his misdeeds. But we were determined. Adam had access to Jacob's world in ways I never could. He began collecting old text messages, screenshots and photos that painted a picture of Jacob's bullying, manipulation, and vandalism. Meanwhile, I started talking to other students who had been victims of Jacob's behavior. Many were hesitant to speak up, terrified of the consequences, but some were willing to share their stories anonymously. One afternoon Adam and I met at a quiet cafe to compare notes. He looked exhausted but focused. I found something, he said, sliding his phone across the table. I picked it up and saw a video, grainy but clear enough to recognize Jacob. He was with a group of other students, trashing what looked like a teacher's car. They were laughing and shouting, their faces illuminated by the streetlights. "This is from last year," Adam explained. "Jacob made me record it. He thought it was hilarious." I felt a surge of anger. This is exactly what we need. The principal can't ignore this. Adam nodded, but his expression was grim. "He's going to come after us when this gets out. Are you ready for that?" I hesitated, but only for a moment. "We can't let him keep doing this, Adam. He needs to be stopped." The next day we submitted everything we had to the principal. The evidence was overwhelming: videos, text messages, and testimonies from students. The principal's face grew darker with every piece of information we presented. "This is serious," he said finally. "I'll need to involve the school board and possibly the police." Adam and I left the office feeling both relieved and anxious. The truth was out, but we knew Jacob wouldn't take this lying down. Sure enough, that afternoon Jacob cornered me in the library. His eyes were wild, his face twisted with rage. "You think you're so smart," he snarled, "turning everyone against me, but you're nothing, or just a nobody pretending to be brave." I stood my ground, refusing to let him see how scared I was. "Your games are over, Jacob. Everyone sees you for what you really are." He took a step closer, but before he could say anything else, Adam appeared behind him. "That's enough, Jacob," Adam said, his voice low and dangerous. "Walk away." Jacob looked between us, his fists clenched, before finally storming out of the library. In the days that followed, the fallout from our actions spread quickly. Jacob was suspended pending further investigation, and his parents were called in for a meeting with the school board. The other students, emboldened by our stand, began coming forward with their own stories of Jacob's bullying. But the most surprising development came from Jacob's father. When he learned the full extent of his son's behavior, he was furious. He publicly apologized to the school and offered to pay for the damages Jacob had caused. As for Jacob, he was sent away to a strict boarding school far from our town. With Jacob gone, the atmosphere at school changed. It felt lighter, freer. Students who had once been afraid to speak up were now finding their voices. And as for me and Adam, we grew closer through the ordeal. He continued to help me with my studies, and I discovered that behind his tough exterior was a kind, thoughtful person. One evening, as we walked home together, he stopped and turned to me. "You know," he said, "I don't think I would have had the courage to stand up to Jacob if it weren't for you." I smiled. "We made a good team, didn't we?" He nodded, then hesitated. "Ora, there's something I've been wanting to say." Before he could finish, I leaned in and kissed him. "Thank you," I said softly. "For what?" "For being brave." As we walked the rest of the way home hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The storm was over, and for the first time in years, the future felt bright. The months that followed were a journey of healing, growth, and unexpected surprises. Jacob's expulsion had been a turning point for the school, but it wasn't the end of the story for Adam, me, or the students he left behind. With Jacob gone, the school administration launched new anti-bullying initiatives. Counselors were brought in to help students process their experiences, and an anonymous reporting system was implemented to ensure that no one would ever feel powerless again. To my surprise, I was approached by the principal to help lead a student committee focused on fostering kindness and inclusivity. At first I hesitated. I wasn't sure if I was ready for such a responsibility, but Adam convinced me. "You've already shown everyone what courage looks like," he said. "Now you get to show them how to build something better." The committee became a huge success. We organized events, started mentorship programs, and worked to create a school culture where everyone felt safe and valued. Adam, too, was finding his footing in this new chapter. With Jacob's toxic influence gone, he began to focus on his own dreams. He joined the debate team, surprising everyone with his sharp wit and ability to think on his feet. But his biggest change came at home. Jacob's father, feeling guilty for the way his family had treated Adam, stepped up to support him and his mother. He paid for her medical treatment and even helped Adam apply for scholarships to pursue his studies. "I finally feel like I'm standing on my own 2 feet," Adam told me one evening as we sat under the stars in the park. I smiled at him. "You always had it in you, you just needed to see it." Despite everything, one question lingered in my mind: what would have happened if I had never bluffed about knowing Jacob's secret? It felt surreal that my spur of the moment lie had set so much into motion. One day, while cleaning out my locker, I found a crumpled note tucked inside. It was unsigned, but the handwriting was unmistakably Adam's. "Thank you for believing in me even when I didn't believe in myself. You helped me stand up, or I hope you know you've changed my life forever." And for the record, Jacob's secret wasn't just about the principal's car. It was about the fear he lived with every day, the fear that someone like you would finally see through him. I laughed, a mix of relief and amazement washing over me. The secret hadn't been a single event or action, it had been Jacob's insecurity, his fear of losing control. Graduation came faster than I expected, and as I stood on that stage, receiving my diploma, I felt a sense of pride that was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. My journey through high school hadn't been easy, but it had made me stronger. Adam and I stayed together, our bond growing deeper with each passing day. He was planning to study law, inspired by his experiences with Jacob, while I had dreams of becoming a writer and sharing stories that could inspire others. On the last day of school, as we stood by the gates for the final time, Adam took my hand and looked at me with a smile. "So what's next for the girl who made the impossible happen?" I grinned. "Whatever comes my way, as long as you're by my side." He leaned in and we kissed, surrounded by the cheers of our friends and the warm glow of a setting sun. It wasn't just the end of high school, it was the start of something new. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready. Ready to face the world, ready to write my story, and ready to live the life I had fought so hard to build. The end, or maybe just the beginning.